mind.
Seriously? Seriously? Lame.
I could do better.
Who dares defy my will?
Shall I turn in my badge and rifle as well?
But all my light guns would have brightened your day.
I do not tolerate cowardice.
Hello, hello. League of Legends second game of preseason. This week we are matched up against Rogers League of Legends in an exciting matchup. We played them last season, and I believe we split the games 1-1, if I'm remembering correctly. And exciting to kind of have the opportunity to be able to play against their team again. So, Pick Band just finished with Blaine on the blue side, selecting Mordekaiser, Kindred, Oriana, Zaya, and Nami. And on the red side, Rogers has selected Gwen, Warwick, Heimerdinger, Twitch, and Lulu. So both of these teams have a little bit different identities. Blaine playing a little bit more towards the kind of 4-1 split push style, having Mordekaiser sitting in a side lane, and then having the rest of the team kind of managing the other waves and trying to get him in isolation as much as possible. And on the red side, Rogers' team comp is a little bit more snowbally in the fact that Warwick kind of has to get ahead early and find those early plays using that blood scent in order to kind of have them scrap with the enemy team. They don't necessarily want to take a ton of straight on fights. They want to use that Twitch invisibility, the Warwick move speed, in order to try to catch people out. So it'll be interesting to see how these two different teams kind of come head to head, and who is able to come out on top. So we are now just waiting for the spectator delay for about 3 minutes until the game actually starts, and then we can get into commentating on how each team does. Super excited for our second week. For Blaine, we have Dale starting in the top lane on the Mordekaiser this game. We have Toki starting in jungle, Ernestia starting in mid, Lip Lock Me starting in AD carry or bottom lane, and Candy Tam starting in support, playing Nami. Super excited for all of this action that we have coming up for us, and I can't wait to see what these two teams are able to do. This first game, these games series are a little bit weird the way that MNVL sets it up, but it is a best of two, meaning that you play two games no matter what. So this will be game one, and then we'll have another round of pick ban, and then we will hop into game two shortly after. So hopefully we'll see an exciting game one, and as well as and depending on how game one goes, we'll see how exciting game two also can be. So time is winding down. We're almost ready to go. Got another 40 seconds till these two teams are clashing on the Rift. But I would expect a lot of the focus this game to be on the bot lanes, just because they are two hyper carry AD carries. And both of the top laners kind of want to be left to their lone. So I'd expect a lot of the jungle pathing and a lot of the action to be happening around bottom lane, at least at the start of the game. Mid lane should be pretty, not too exciting. All things considered, it'll probably just be Heimerdinger placing down turrets, pushing Orianna in, and Orianna last hitting under turret. And Mordekaiser will have the shove into Gwen early, more than likely. And then later, Gwen will be able to fight back against the Mord. And then bot lane, Xayah and Nami have a bit of an edge in the early game, but Lulu and Twitch definitely do outscale. So it will be interesting to see how these teams can leverage what their champions can do within the game. So now we're jumping into loading screen. We can check out some of the rune choices. So it looks like Mordekaiser has opted for the Conqueror. Kindred has opted for the Fleet Footwork. Orianna has opted for the Phase Rush. Xayah has opted for the Lethal Tempo. And Nami has opted for the Summon Aerie. Gwen has the Conqueror. Warwick has Press the Attack. Heimerdinger has Comet. Twitch has Lethal Tempo, and finally Lulu also has Aerie. A bit of variation is Heimerdinger does have Barrier in the mid lane. Twitch has a Ghost as the AD carry, and Lulu has Exhaust, which is pretty normal, stock standard. Both of the top laners have Teleport, as well as Lip Lock Me having that Exhaust on the Xayah to stop some of that dive on top of him. And Candy Tam has that Ignite for that aggressive laning pressure. So nothing too crazy on level 1. Both teams kind of just stick into their own sides of the jungle. Rogers ends up getting a bit of a deep ward on the Tribe Rush just to see if they come back from leashing. And Twitch has run to mid and has started wailing on Orianna for a bit of level 1 cheese damage. Orianna getting kind of low. And she does end up getting away, but that is not great for their lane. So Orianna unfortunately has to base because of the Twitch level 1. And we will see how that ends up playing out for her lane. So she ends up having to TP back on level 1. That's a pretty big disadvantage. So we'll see if the Heimerdinger can leverage that. Twitch is going in for that level 1 trade onto the Xayah, using the Lulu shield. And it looks to be fairly successful for Rogers. A bit of an HP lead in the bottom lane to start. So kind of as expected, the Heimerdinger's kind of placed down his turrets on that level 1 and started to force the Orianna to play from under her turret. But other than that, both of the side lanes are pretty quiet. Warwick is clearing from bot to top, it looks like, with the Blaine jungler also, I believe, having bot to top. Kindred looking for a gank mid. He lands that E on the Heimerdinger, taking a little bit of damage from the turrets, but he does end up getting a flash. Warwick is here to defend his mid laner. He catches the Kindred flash. Both AD carries trading quite a bit of damage with the lethal tempo in the bottom lane. Whole bunch of flashes, so it looks like both Kindred and Warwick did burn flash in that mid play, as well as Heimer also burned it initially when Kindred ganked, so it's definitely benefit to the side of lane. Twitch trading again heavily with the bottom lane with that lethal tempo. And Candy Tam almost goes down, but barely manages to survive the onslaught of Twitch auto attacks. Lip Lock Me trying to catch the rest of those minions under the turret. As Heimerdinger again puts down his turrets and starts pushing Orianna in again. Top lane kind of is expected, is not that nothing much is happening in these early levels. Both of them kind of just last hitting their minions. Chillaxing. First blood to the Xayah in the bottom lane. Well played to Blaine's bottom lane. Off of the Toki's Kindred gank. As Warwick is now trying to run at the Kindred from using his Blood Scent, but could not get a kill. Oh, and Twitch ends up trading 1-for-1 for Xayah. Interesting, alright. A little bit of action here in the early levels. Both teams are basically even. Blaine at that 5.3k gold, and Rogers at that 5.5k gold. Top laners trading a little aggressively, but both of them still at about 30 or 40% health. As both of the junglers now jump back into their jungles and hop on their second clear. Toki down a little bit of farm, but also does have that kill in his back pocket, so he's in a pretty good spot, item-wise. As he looks to gank mid again, the flashless Heimerdinger. He plays with a little bit more respect this time, isn't able to get anything from it. Clears out the ward and then heads back into his own jungle. Blaine's bot lane gets the push into Rogers, uses that time to clear out some of the vision that they have established. Toki is kind of coming in to try to relieve some of this pressure on Orianna after she based. Clear out some of those turrets to make sure she doesn't lose a lot of those turret platings and a lot of those creeps.
It's me!
Twitch is looking for something bottom, but he isn't quite able to find it. Ooh, as the bubble connects from the KV Tam for the E, a really good trade on the Twitch's HP bar. Twitch is at about 15% life. The exhaust comes out from the Lulu to prevent Xayah from stepping any further, but it's definitely a good enough trade to end up pushing that Twitch out of lane. As meanwhile, Toki shows top in an attempted gank. One ends up burning R. As Mordekaiser brings Warwick into the death realm. And Warwick ends up killing the Mordekaiser Dale. Bit of an unfortunate happening there. If he connected with that Q, he might be able to kill the Warwick, but Warwick was able to dodge that skill shot and rewards himself with a kill. As Twitch again is looking to engage on Xayah in the bot lane. Trades quite aggressively, gets about 60% of his HP.
It's smaller than the diagram.
As Heimer again places down his turrets mid lane and starts pushing Orianna in again. This is kind of how this matchup works in lane, at least. There's not much Orianna can really do about it. She can try to clear out the turrets as best as she can, but he will have the push if he wants it. He is down. His flash is almost back up. As their bot lane is running. Ooh. Heimerdinger blows his ult. Orianna has to flash. Top laner's trading a little bit. Back and forth. As we kind of have a bit of a lull in the action, Orianna TP's back. Twitch looking for something on the Nami and Xayah, but he isn't able to really find anything. Looks like Warwick might be starting up that first dragon for our first major objective of the game. As Mordekaiser solo kills the Gwen in the top lane. Very nice. Rogers continues to hit the dragon. getting pretty low, and Warwick does end up smite securing it, so that is the dragon going the way of Rogers. Warwick backs out, goes back to clear some of his camps. Their bot lane returns bot to pick up the waves that Xayah was pushing in. Gwen ends up TPing back after dying to pick up that wave under her turret. And we've kind of reached another bit of a waiting period. Both of the junglers are going through full clearing their camps, making sure they're getting that golden experience. Terminator ends up clearing that control ward and that mid-side brush to maybe potentially set up for a Rift Herald play. Again, placing some more of his turrets to push in the Orianna. As Kindred again looks to try to break this constant push from Heimer and bail Orianna out. Twitch has been constantly looking in this lane. Every time his Q is up, he Qs, kind of walks forward with the Lulu shield and tries to look to trade onto Blaine's bot lane as much as he can. It's been fairly positive so far, but in terms of the actual result of the lane states, Xayah is still up a few creeps, and they're both even in kills, so it hasn't necessarily netted him that much of an advantage so far. And a smite win for the Warwick at topside Scuttle for him to take that first Scuttle grab away from him. Gwen is there as well, roaming down to help support his jungler. Toki ends up having to back up and clear the rest of his jungle. On the bright side, Mordekaiser does get to push in that top wave, as Mordekaiser looks like might be getting ganked by Warwick. He decides to call it off. Lulu looks like she might be roaming mid. Kindred is running into the Warwick. As both the AD carries, it looks like might be left on their own. Cougars trading aggressively once again. But overall, a pretty even game so far. Both of the gold is almost exactly even at about 12 minutes into the game, which isn't too crazy. Rogers does have the benefit of having a dragon so far, so they are dragon stacking. As it looks like Mordekaiser is being ganked by the Warwick here in the top lane. Mordekaiser ults the Gwen. Tries to trade aggressively, potentially going 1-for-1. Ends up getting the kill on the Gwen and ends up going 1-for-1 with the gank. Not too bad. As a Mordekaiser player, this is almost exactly what you're looking for, to at least try to go 1-for-1 and hopefully get to a point where you're strong enough to 2v1 both the enemy top laner and the jungler. As it sets him up for a pretty good spot to be successful later on in the game in split pushing. As Warwick now starts up that Rift Herald in the top side. And Kindred ends up ganking bots. Lulu blows ult on the Kindred to try to reduce the amount of damage that he takes. As Xayah ults and flashes forward with E. Twitch trying to trade back with his R and lethal tempo, but he isn't able to kill the Kindred. So it is a kill for Blaine in the bottom lane. Lulu ended up blowing all of her summoners and her ultimate, but they still were able to kill her. Very nice. Well played by Blaine. As Warwick ends up taking the Rift Herald and top Scuttle for his troubles, top lane. Blaine now still not necessarily a big gold lead here yet. Gold is almost exactly even, which is kind of crazy, all things considered, how this game has gone so far. But both teams are scrapping really well and able to keep it close. as we kind of return back to our normal lane state. So I'd expect the next fight to kind of happen over Dragon that is now spawning, the second dragon of the game. Do note that if this dragon fight does start, Xayah does have her Gale Force, Heimerdinger does also have his Liandry's. So a few of those first completed items coming in for this first fight of the game. As it looks like both junglers are now setting up for bot side, trying to contest for some of the vision to start Dragon. As Warwick just jumps on Kindred and one-shots him straight out of the bush. So it looks like the Dragon may end up going the way of Rogers. Tokyo is not ready for the amount of damage to come out of that Warwick. It looks like Warwick is building that first item, Ravenous Hydra, for that quicker jungle clear, a bit more burst damage. A little less tanky, but definitely a lot more damage to be had. As they do so, Rogers does end up picking up that second dragon. It is a Mountain Soul this game, as Twitch ends up burning the ultimate with Lulu to back him up, as Warwick is also there, and both of Blaine's bot lane ends up dying to that Twitch ultimate. When C gets that R and those Lulu speeds, that Twitch is really hard to get away from, especially if you have no flash, so he ends up picking up 2 more kills for himself. He's now 3-1 on that Twitch. We now see the first gold lead of the game, and this time it is for Rogers. They have about a 1k gold lead after using that Rift Herald in the bottom lane. As Heimerdinger continues to push in Orianna. Orianna finds a good ultimate on Heimer though, and gets his flash and his barrier. Looks really close, not quite able to secure the kill. Orianna burning a little bit from Liandry's, it's a little close. As both of them end up walking away. Both top laners again kind of trading aggressively. This matchup is always tense. Mordekaiser kind of always using his abilities both on the wave and on the enemy laner to try to force the push, force them to try to do something. He really wants Warwick to come up here again so that he can potentially ult him and 1v1 him. Ooh, as they find a really good bubble onto the Twitch. Or onto the Lulu, my bad. As Xayah does end up getting exhausted. And Twitch continues to ult. But the ultimate comes out from Nami, but not quite in time to save Xayah's life, as Twitch ends up picking up 2 more kills for his troubles. Twitch now really fed in this game, 5-1. He has that first mythic also completed, just like Xayah, but I would imagine he has quite a bit of gold to spend once he returns back to base. Mordekaiser now finally kind of leveraging that power of having a completed item against Gwen's components, able to kind of push her in and use a little bit more of this champion's 1v1 ability. He casts that ultimate and just solo kills him straight up. Great play from Dale. As he pushes in the lane again, he says, alright, call your jungler top. I need some attention up here. This top lane is not okay right now. Wails on that turret. He's got about 60% of that turret down as Warwick ends up running towards top. Ooh, good E from Dale, but Dale does not have ult. Without ult, it is going to be pretty hard for him to beat this Warwick. As he flashes, but Warwick's ult does follow him, and that is another kill for the Warwick. Warwick is now 4-0. Toki is getting jumped on by Warwick again with the Lulu speed-ups. Warwick Lulu can be very powerful as Lulu flashes in to secure the kill onto Toki. So, a lot of action, a lot of things going on. It's 26k gold to 28k gold. Blades down by a little bit, but it is... Oh, as Twitch opens up, he ends up trying to space glide on the Xayah, and unfortunately he does get it. When Twitch has ghosts like this and he has that R up and he's this fed, there is really not much you can do. He just outranges you and he outruns you, and if he plays it correctly, it is Really hard to play into, as Twitch is kind of unleashed in this game now. On 7-1 on the Twitch. As Mordekaiser now is looking for the 1v1 onto Gwen again. Trying to leverage this top lane lead. Gets a really good trade, but is not quite able to kill him. As now Kindred is now trading aggressively into Lulu, gets that Scuttle Crab. As he burns that ultimate into Warwick, Lulu uses her ultimate. And Warwick potentially in a position to die here. As Twitch ends up killing Orianna mid lane. Or just in the middle of 3 of them, ends up dying to the Gwen. Warwick uses his ultimate with a huge amount of move speed, ends up dashing across half the screen, and ends up killing Kindred, even though his ultimate does not connect. He does have that Blade of the Rune King now, as a fully built item, and he is really strong. In a 1v1, it is really difficult to beat Warwick on these item spikes. With the damage reduction from his E and the amount of attack speed that he has, he does quite a bit of damage and has quite a bit of lifesteal. On the bright side for Blaine, they did pick up that objective bounty in the bottom lane from breaking that turret, while Twitch ran mid, so they are able to get back some of that gold. As Twitch now opens up onto Xayah with his ultimate. Xayah ends up flashing. But he does end up getting away. Now Warwick moving down towards this bottom side dragon. Xayah is still trading a bit aggressively into the Twitch. Bottom on a base. Orianna found a good ultimate onto the Lulu, but Lulu ends up getting away. As Orianna, just barely dies to the Heimerdinger, unfortunate. Game getting a little bit out of hand now, as Rogers takes a bit of a lead. If the Blaine's made way into this game now, as they have to find a shutdown onto both Twitch and on Warwick. If they're able to find a shutdown onto those champs and get it onto one of the carries for Blaine, it'll make this game much more winnable, but right now it's definitely a bit of a desperation attempt. As Toki jumps onto Twitch, Twitch is getting kind of low. Toki does end up getting the shutdown from Twitch. That's just what I was kind of talking about. That's a huge 1,000 gold shutdown to the Kindred. Potentially able to now pick up her next item, or at least components for her next item when she bases. Mordekaiser does still have the push on Gwen in the top lane, as both teams now look to be setting up for this third dragon of the game, this mountain dragon. Blaine would really like to pick this one up to deny the soul point from Rogers, as it looks like Mordekaiser might be able to take this top lane first. As he trades aggressively into Gwen, but he looks like Gale ends up trading his life for that top lane turret. As Toki is now picked off by the squad of 3 from Rogers, and also Candy Tam ends up going down as well. Things kind of falling apart for Blaine on all sides, a bit unfortunate. Now Rogers now picks up this third dragon. Rogers will now be on soul point for Mountain Dragon. On the bright side, you do have Mordekaiser coming in with the Jock Show. So he does now have those 2 items completed. Kindred also finally picking up some of those components as Twitch opens up with his ultimate in the mid lane and ends up blowing up Xayah neatly. Ends up flashing for it, but there is just not much that flip flop you can do in that scenario. Twitch takes the red buff for good measure and kind of walks out. And almost everyone on Rogers at this point has a bounty, so if Blaine can end up picking off any of their members and getting some of those bounty cash-ins, they could definitely have a chance, but if they're not able to pick up some of these bounties, it's going to be a little difficult. Almost a 7k gold lead now for Rogers. Looks like Rogers is now kind of moving their members up towards the Baron area. Twitch still being bot, but the rest of Rogers being top. Looks like they may be looking for a play onto Mordekaiser. As they all are there, Kindred ends up deciding to go for a play on the Twitch in the bottom lane, which he does end up getting another shutdown for himself. As Rogers now is starting back Baron after seeing Kindred in bottom lane. So it does look like Rogers will get this Baron contested for the most part, trading Twitch's life for the Baron. Now still around the same, a little bit bigger gold lead, about a 8k gold lead now, more or less, for Rogers. Lane really needs to find some picks in this game to try to leverage their way back in. Some of that extra gold on the Xayah or on the Orianna could do them a lot of good. As now Rogers sets up for their Baron push. Everyone kind of finally coming on the map all together. Looks like they're choosing mid lane as the lane they want to push. Kind of just waiting for everyone to get there, start forcing. As here we go, here's the Baron siege from Rogers. Everyone's walking together mid lane with their mid wave. Xayah doing her best to kind of clean the wave before they can get a lot of damage on the turret. Baron minion sieging the inhibitor. They got about half of their mid lane turrets HP gone. As Mordekaiser continues to split push top lane to try to give them a point of pressure in this game. Lane clears out the minions once again. Able to reduce the amount of damage that their mid inner turret is taking. Mordekaiser ends up recalling top lane to try to come back mid. So far, Blaine doing a pretty good job at stalling out the Baron push as Twitch opens up with his ultimate, and that is a lot of damage. He almost 2-hit the Xayah using his ultimate. As Kindred ends up going in, ooh! Oh, a crazy fight going on, and Warwick ends up cleaning up two of the backliners. But also, so did Kindred. Oh, Mordekaiser getting the shutdown onto Gwen. Warwick, however, ends up running down the Kindred as what looks for a 3 for 3. So, relatively speaking, pretty decent for Blaine. However, it does look like Hale is going to go down to the Warwick here. Not much you can do in this scenario. Yeah. So now it is Orianna versus Heimer, but unfortunately Orianna has friends, so Heimerdinger is not able to push in for the Nexus. As it looks like Rogers is backing up to get this soul point. Blaine's really gotta do something, but it's pretty difficult when their jungler is dead. So we will see. It looks like Rogers is starting it up. Will Blaine have a contest? It looks like they will not. So it looks like that is Rogers' soul point for 3, it looks like. Ooh, looks like Kindred might be going for a Miracle Steal, but he does get ulted from Warwick right away, so there is no chance for a steal. So also Xayah does end up falling to Warwick. The Mountain Soul is secured. This one's looking a little bit difficult for Blaine to come back from. As also Candy Tam does fall to Warwick again. Warwick completely unleashed in this game, 13-0. As Twitch opens up with his ultimate onto Mordekaiser, but he is not able to kill Warwick quite yet. But Rogers all running together with that Shurelya's popped. Orianna trying to ult the wave to stop them from killing her, but it is not quite enough to save her. As it looks like Rogers may just end up winning the game right here. We'll see if Toki has something to say about it. They're just sieging the Nexus now. 2 of the inhibitors have now fallen for Rogers. Lane only has their Nexus turrets and their top inhibitor left. As they kind of try to hold back the siege from Rogers. But with Mountain Soul, it is really hard for them to find any lasting amount of damage. As Warwick does end up falling to Xayah. Gwen is exhausted, Litlock doing the best that he can, but they are just too strong. That Mountain Soul is too hard for them to get through. As the Gwen is Lulu ulted. Excuse me. And it looks like Rogers will end the game here. So that is the end of game 1. Rogers does take the victory, and I will be back with you for game 2. Hello, testing 1 2.
I'll be funneling.
I do not tolerate cowardice.
You overstep.
Well, now I'm just mad.
All right, and we're back for game 2. Here we go. Bit of an exciting one. First game was really close for a majority of the early game, and eventually Rogers ended up running away with it, using that Dragon Soul, the power of the Mountain Soul, to end the game. This game, we have a little bit different. Blaine has ended up swapping a few players' positions. So we have a few different players playing a few different champs. But if we're just looking at the drafts right now, we have Rogers on the blue side this game with Gwen, Nunu, and Willump, Aurelion Sol, Samira, and Nautilus. And on the red side, you have Blaine with Fiora, Vi, Rakan, Kaisa, and Leona. So this game is a little bit different than the last. Mostly based on the fact that last game, both of these supports were playing those enchanters, right? They were kind of buffing up their teammates, letting them kind of roam free, and then kind of sitting in the back. However, this game, the enchanters are no more. It is Leona Nautilus full engage, so we should be seeing a lot more scrapping than we already were. Not that we weren't last game, because there was already quite a bit of scrapping last game. So I would expect that in this game, there is the same, if not more, than last game. I do think if the game continues and extends for a long period of time, Rogers does have a bit of a better draft. Aurelion Sol, once he gets a bunch of those Stardust stacks, ends up doing quite a bit of percent health damage. And he just scales kind of like a monster. Once you hit that, 25, 30-minute point, you're hitting 2-3 items on Aurelion Sol. Your E ends up taking up about half of the lane width. The champion can be quite crazy. The downside of Aurelion Sol is his early game is quite weak. He can be exploited, especially by the jungler. So I would look to see if Dale on the Vi can punish this Aurelion Sol early game using some of that setup from Rakan and or Leona. And top lane, just like last game, will be, I would expect to be kind of like an island. It is Gwen, Fiora. Those are two primarily split pushing champions. I would not necessarily expect to see either one of them really grouping with the team much at all this game. But talking about those things, the thing that, again, the support matchup in bot lane is where I expect all of the action to be happening this game. It's Samira Nautilus versus Kaisa Leona. These are two bot lanes that just kind of go in, and whoever is able to play that all in better is usually the one who ends up winning. So we will see what Blaine can do in this game with that Kaisa Leona into the Samira Nautilus. The bright side is that once Samira tries to go in later in the game, once Vi has that level 6 and has her ultimate, that Assault and Battery Vi ultimate does wonders in preventing Samira from just trying to reset all over the team. Other than that, I would expect both junglers to probably be starting bot side and pathing towards top. There is a world where Vi could start top and path bot. I think for Nunu, it probably makes more sense that he starts bot. But we will see. Nunu ganking Fiora is kind of interesting because most of the time the snowball is very telegraphed, meaning that Fiora can riposte it fairly easily if she is, paying attention and, has good reaction speed. So we'll see if he is able to do that in the top lane. should he get ganked. So time is winding down. We got about 15 seconds left before we jump into game 2 of Rogers and Blaine. I'm excited to see this one happen. First game was definitely action happening 24/7. So I hope this game can, give us the same amount of entertainment. So waiting for, and now we are loading in. If we look at some of the rune choices before we load in, Gwen does have that Conqueror, Nunu has that Phase Rush, Aurelion Sol with the First Strike, Samira with the Conqueror, and Nautilus with the Glacial Augment. And then on the other side you have Rakan with that Electrocute, Fiora with Grasp, Vi with Conqueror, Kai'Sa with Lethal Tempo, and Leona with Glacial Augment. So interesting thing to kind of note is that both of those supports do have that Glacial Augment, so they'll be a little less tanky as we do a minor pause, but we are back. As both of the supports are a little bit less tanky, but they do have the benefit of a bit of an AoE slow, so they have a little bit more utility traded off for a little bit of tankiness. So as both teams hop on to the Rift, another thing to be noted, Aurelion Sol does have that barrier again this game, like he did on Heimer last game. And the
minions have spawned.
Samira does have that cleanse for Leona. So we will see what we can, or what Blaine can do in this game. Looks like both junglers are positioned bot side. Ooh, I lied. Dale is positioning top side, potentially solo starting that red buff, which it looks like he will. Nunu will start with a leash from his bot lane. As now he finishes up that first camp. So Vi's clear should be a little bit slower than Nunu's now, because Nunu did end up getting a leash from his bottom lane. As Nunu hops down to the Krugs, Vi goes from red buff to Raptors. So Vi is, it does look like, pathing down. And nothing too crazy on level 1. Both of the melee supports don't necessarily really want to engage right away. As Nautilus throws a hook, they do ding 2, but he does miss. Blaine also ends up hitting 2 here. Ooh, Leona misses her E, Nautilus misses his hook. As he does drop the Ignite onto Kai'Sa. As Toki does get the push on the Fiora in this early part of the lane, leveraging a bit of that early Fiora power in level 1 and level 2, having the dash, and Gwen not being able to trade very back to it very effectively. As it looks like Vi and Nunu are scrapping a little bit. Nunu looks like he may have smited away Vi's blue buff. Bit unfortunate for Dale. As Nunu returns back to his jungle to continue clearing, Vi is now, looks like he is looking to gank bot here. Do not think they have vision. They have no knowledge of him being here. As they should just go onto Nautilus here. This might just be a dead Nautilus. As he does flash, but it is first blood for Blaine. Very well played. A little bit of trading in the top lane. There was a bit of a CS lead in early in this lane, but it looks like it has more or less evened out. As Nunu ends up rolling his ball top, but Fiora does end up repulsing it. Flash queuing away, but Nunu does flash follow. As Fiora is kind of fighting with the vitals, but it does not look like it will be enough. So Toki does end up falling to the Nunu lane. He did riposte the W, but Nunu was able to flash after him with his E to secure that kill. Bright side is Toki does have that teleport to teleport back and not miss any of those minions. Now this is quite a big wave for Toki to pick up, so hopefully he can pick up most of this wave as it crashes into his turret. After this crashes, if Toki's able to get quite a bit of them, he will have a bit of a CS lead, so that is a benefit for him. Nunu at this point in the game has quite a sizable lead in terms of jungle camps over Vi. Vi is looking for this mid lane gank. He does connect the Q onto the Aurelion Soul, but they do not have enough damage to really threaten a kill. As bot lane now is pushing in with that Samira Nautilus. And it looks like they may look for a base finally. Both teams kind of positioned around this first dragon. A flash E in from Nona, but they were not ready for Nunu's E here. So this looks like it may be... Oh, hold on. I say it's in there. As Samira flashes in, he gets 2 kills. As Kai'Sa gets a double, but they do end up winning out. So Kai'Sa does get a triple kill, while the Samira gets a double kill. So it is a win for Blaine. This is about a 500 gold lead, so not too crazy, but it is a gold lead nonetheless. Lip Lockme comes back to lane with a pretty big purchase of a moon for her, looks like. Or I like, he is not based yet, that was off of his first base. And he's trying to work on some of these turret platings. Gets a turret plating, but Nautilus is here to kind of interrupt him. He flashes the Nautilus hook to get away. As now it looks like the Lip Lock will finally base, buy some of those items from those kills. He gets that pickaxe and that Cloak of Agility. Quite a bit of combat stats for him. Top lane has, even after the game, Toki is up about 10 CS in this matchup, so a nice little minor learning for him. As Rogers does secure the first dragon, a Hextech dragon for them. And goes back to, again, clear his jungle once again, as Dale is moved towards the bot side right now, on his wolves at the moment. Bit of aggressive trading in the top lane. As Dale is down here to clear some of the vision. Try to make sure that his bot lane can continue to be safe. Don't necessarily want to give up that... Ooh, as Toki is solo killed by the Gwen. Bit unfortunate. That level 6 from Gwen is quite a bit of damage. I think he was surprised a little bit by the amount of burst damage that came out from it. As he will be losing quite a bit of food for dying, which is unfortunate. However, a bit of a scrap in the bottom lane. Nautilus flashes away. Samira in on top of J-Lub. But there is the shutdown to Samira. As he approaches ultimate, it is another triple kill for Samira. A bit unfortunate. Samira is now 5-1 in this game. Looks like Rogers is going to take one, maybe two turret platings to your bottom. And Munu is invading Blaine's bot side, taking a, looks like Gromp, potentially looking to pressure them on the wave. Decides not to. As Vi continues to clear his top side. Guys are kind of looking to catch either one of them on recalls, just barely wasn't able to get them. As now about 10 minutes in, checking at the relative state of the game. Rogers has 17.45k gold, and Blaine is at 14k, as Toki does end up blocking all of his vitals on his ultimate, but it is still not quite enough to beat the Gwen, as Gwen does flash away when Dale ults him, but it is not enough to bring him down. So that is another kill onto this Gwen in the top side. So about a 3k gold lead now for Rogers at this point in the game. Mostly focused on the Samira and the Gwen. As Nautilus does blow his ultimate onto the Kai'Sa, Samira does end up getting exhausted. A bit of a close fight. The hook does connect onto the Kai'Sa, and that is another double kill for the as Aurelion Sol breathes his fire in the mid lane and ends up solo killing Candy Tan. That Aurelion Sol ultimate is quite impactful, especially once you get that evolved version where it is almost global. A very silly champ. Looks like Aurelion Sol is opting for that Rod of Ages build. Gwen does have her Riftmaker coming in completed. Nunu has the Sunfire coming in. Samira has that shield bow, so most of Rogers' squad has their completed items. On Blaine's side, it is only lip locking currently with a completed item. As Nautilus brings his stopwatch here to try to live, but he was not able to. Ooh, as they are just able to not kill the Samira, but unfortunate. Both of the junglers kind of scrapping. And looks like Leona ends up sniping the kill with her ultimate. So a few kills there for Blaine. It is 11-5 now. Blaine is farming some of these turret plates bottom using that Rift Hero bottleneck. This should be a pretty big influx of gold, if not completely break the turret. As, ooh, it's very low. Looks like they should kill it. Very nice. That is first turret gold as they engage onto the Nautilus again. However, it does look like Samira is Samiring all over them. A triple kill for Samira. That is a bit unfortunate. Samira is completely unlocked in this game with that 10-1 scoreline. Aggressively, Gwen does end up blowing that ultimate, but unfortunately, at this point in the game, Toki is not much that he can do. He's 2 levels down, he's missed too many minions, and mythic to non-mythic, Gwen is just too strong. As Leo walks in, just spites the dragon, dies for it. But that is a dragon for Blaine. That is a win. Nautilus ends up clicking in. Aurelion Sol using that upgraded ultimate. You can just see how impactful it is. As now Samira dashes everywhere and ends up killing 3 of them, it looks like. However, she does end up falling and giving that shutdown to the Kai'Sa. So that is quite a big influx of gold for Kai'Sa. That shutdown being almost max stacks, I think, almost 1,000 gold for that shutdown. So,
Red team's turret has been
again, kind of re-looking at the state of the game, it's about 29k for Rogers, 23k for Blaine. So about a 6k gold lead for Rogers at this point in the game. Most of that gold, again, still focused on the Gwen and the Samira. Still using a little bit of fancy feet to dodge the snowball from Nunu, as both of the top laners looks like they may be all laning again. But they both decide the better of it. Nunu ends up running a snowball towards mid lane. Oh, as Leona gets caught by the snowball, she ends up having to DN, but there is just not much she can do at this point. As Gwen flashes forward and ends up killing Toki as well. 20-8 at this point. We've entered a little bit of dire straits for Blade. We're gonna have to pick up the bounties again, just like last game. If if Kai'Sa can pick up some of those bounties, then I do think that they still have a chance. Everything has to be played through Kai'Sa. With Lakmi has to kind of put on those carry shoes and take matters into his own hands. Like they did to using that Throwing Soul, luckily they can Throwing Soul from the top of the power version, but unfortunately Samira is just too strong. Ooh, Waldale almost kills Samira, but not quite. And that is a triple kill for the Samira. Nobody on Rogers ends up falling. 3 people from Blade who end up falling. Brilliant Soul pushing that mid wave, getting a little bit of damage on my mid turret. You are using that ultimate on Samira so she can get a kill. As he trades into the Samira. Ooh, a little bit of scrapping, but it is still another kill for the Samira. However, that is a shutdown onto the Leona. As Dale is scrapping a little bit with Gwen, ends up burning her ultimate to dissuade the Vi engage. The whole team trying to collapse on this Gwen as the shutdown is secured for Lakmi. That is super good. Quite a bit of gold again onto that Kai'Sa. So it is the battle of 80 carries this game. It is 16-2 Samira versus the 8-5 Kai'Sa. Who will be able to come out on top? As Nunu ends up rolling his snowball down mid, looking for a potential fight. But they are not able to find it. However, it does look like Nautilus is now engaging onto Rakan. He hits him with a second hook. Not able to really get much out. As Rogers does look to be mid lane. He drops the Yuli ultimate, but that is quite a bit of early. As Kai'Sa ends up falling to the Samira, and Samira is just way too strong. They take that mid lane inhibitor,
Blue team double
Looks
kill.
like they may back up to do the dragon. Or they might try to end the game here. We will see.
Red team's turret.
As now you can see how incredibly difficult it is to play into that Aurelion Soul E. It takes up such a large amount of space. He just presses the E and you essentially can't pass through it. And moving on to the Samira. However, it dies instantly, as does Rakan. The Samira is now 20 and 2. Samira ends up ulting the Samira, but again, she is just a little bit too fast. As that is a pet kill for Rogers, and it looks like it may be the end of the game. Fiona does her best to stop the charging enemy team, but it is not quite enough, as it looks like Rogers will end the game here.
Blue team double kill. Aced.
So that looks to be the end of the game. They do get the shutdown onto the Samira, but the Nexus looks like it might be just a little too... Ooh. Hold on. Oh, and the TP from Gwen ends the game. So that is a 2-0 victory for Rogers over Blaine. Thanks everyone for tuning in and watching Blaine play. That is the end of the preseason for MNVL. Next week will be the first regulation season, or the first regulation game, I should say. So please tune back in next Friday, hopefully for Blaine's game, and hopefully next week we are able to bring home that W. So thank you all for watching, and that is Spades signing off.